My name is Brianna Lewis, and I would like to share with you a review that I did on an article report called How to Empower Employees to Make Effective Decisions on the Front Line by President Mac McIntyre. I found this article very interesting to read, and I felt like it shed a lot of new light on a couple of issues facing empowerment in the workplace and how it's implemented and what really goes into empowering an employee. I found a quote by Ty Howard that I felt like was perfect to go hand in hand with empowerment. It says, to fear change is to fear being challenged. To fear being challenged is to fear growth and new possibilities. I feel like that fits perfect because empowerment is more of a new thing that's being implemented in companies today. And a lot of companies haven't even heard of it. It's definitely a new thing. So it's kind of like a new challenge. It's hard to implement. It's hard to understand. A lot of times, management, when they go to implement empowerment, they struggle with it because they're afraid of losing their jobs, or they're afraid of their employees making mistakes or even making huge mistakes that can cost the company a lot of money, which is super understandable. But it makes it difficult to empower your employee when you think in that mindset. So I think part of it has to do with a mindset change, which was not mentioned in this article, but is important to understand. Empowerment is giving your employee the power to make decisions on their own, obviously. It's developing a two-way open communication between management and employees. It's where management can look at their employee and say, this is where you're doing well. It kind of is like giving them feedback back. This is where you're doing well, this is where you're doing bad, this is where you can improve. It's a way of giving them consequences for their actions, because no matter what, if you're empowered, you got more consequences, whether that's good or bad. So the three key things that go with this that were discussed in the article are the meaning of empowerment, how and when to empower your employees, and the differences between accountability and responsibility. So first is the meaning of empowerment. Empowerment is when you give your employee the responsibility and authority to make decisions. I think this goes more of with an executive decision that you hear a lot happening in a company. If an employee can make an executive decision, more than likely they're making that decision on their own without approval from anyone, which is giving them the power to make that decision without approval, which is empowerment. However, I do feel like empowerment isn't giving total control over to someone. You have to have skill sets, you have to have knowledge and experience and things like that to be able to make decisions on your own. You can't just give an employee all of this power and they're not able to make good decisions. However, mistakes will happen with even good employees. It's just a matter of the management, the manager being responsible for their own decisions that they're making, allowing their employees to make more. The second is how and when to empower your employees. When employees should be empowered is based on their skill set, like I said, their experience, their knowledge, as well as other characteristics, being respectful, timely, competent, understanding, responsible. Obviously, how it's based in this article, it goes by 3 different zones. They're mentioned in the article. It's black, green, and red. The black zone is the tasks associated with the job position, kind of like when you first start your job. The job description kind of tells you like, okay, you're responsible for answering phone calls, for doing an edit, that kind of thing. Those are kind of your black zone activities and tasks that you have to accomplish that you're in charge of, responsible for. Not so much empowered, but you still have power because you have to make decisions in that you're responsible for, that no one is going to, you don't have to seek approval for that. An example in my own job would be me being responsible, like I said, for answering the phones, for answering emails, for doing an edit in the morning, that sort of thing. Second zone is a green zone, and it's being able to make decisions without seeking approval from management. So same thing, but a little bit higher up. This is kind of that area where you make that executive decision, and you can do that with an employee standing there, with your manager standing there, but no one's going to tell you how and when to do it, or if your decision's the best decision. You get to decide that on your own. An example for myself in my company, would be something super simple because I'm an intern, would be like filing paperwork or reorganizing. I'm allowed to make those decisions on my own without having to get approval from anyone. The last zone is the red zone, where employees must get approval before proceeding with their decisions. This is sort of like bigger decisions. So, for example, in my company, I work with forecasting, which is super big for like a budget and for money that goes into the organization. It's super big that you have to make sure the decision that you make on that is correct. And so, obviously, I'm an intern, I'm still in school, I don't have the skill set to be able to make those decisions on my own yet. So my boss will look over my decision and my numbers and everything that I came up with before I enter it into our system and it becomes permanent. So that's kind of like your red zone. The last thing I would like to discuss is the difference between accountability and responsibility. I feel like the article kind of was vague about it, but made some very good points. Being responsible just means being responsible over the tasks that you're given, kind of like that black zone. Accountability is being responsible for decisions made in the green zone, the executive decision zone. And then shared accountability is another form of accountability. It's when a manager takes on a recommendation from an employee that's below them, obviously, and they implement it, and then whether the outcome is good or bad or positive or negative, both of them share in that accountability for that. That's super important to understand when you're working with someone in a company that you're empowering. In conclusion, empowerment is a great way for a company, and it helps employees find a place where they can succeed and grow, as well as giving the company more of a well-organized way of working. The entire article kind of boils down to the employees being able to have that empowerment, being able to feel connected to the company, being able to be responsible and learning and growing on their own, as well as with the company internally, externally. And it kind of just makes everything more efficient and productive when everyone is trying really hard, and it makes decision making a lot more efficient because your employees are learning how to strategically think on their own. So I think that this article was a great article to read, and that it makes a lot of sense with looking into a company, and it ties in with the book and empowerment. And my company that I work for, I realized that there are a lot of similarities with what I read and how it can tie in with that. So I know that it's applicable in a company. And that is all. Thank you.